y'all. It's Catherine from Shuffle Online. We're back with Shuffle the Podcast, episode 3. Yay!
All right. Woo!
Ooh, you're doing a Matthew McConaughey impression.
Is that what this is?
I love it. All right.
All right.
We're back.
And I'm right here with you, Kat. It's me, Kate, the film critic with a heart of gold. Cynical as always. Happy to be here in beautiful Permanent Record Studios on beautiful South Congress in beautiful Austin, Texas. It's a great day to be shuffling, you guys.
What have you been up to lately, Kate?
Oh, God. Well, you know, as always, gearing up for what's coming up in movies. But what I have been doing right now is I have been in the process of moving, which sucks. It's been terrible. Although, something that I did think about that I forgot to mention on the last podcast that is like an obsession that has carried through big time. So I went to Austin City Limits a couple of weeks ago and heard this amazing band. They're out of Oakland, and they were opening for a concert there. Planet Booty.
Planet Booty?
Planet Booty. And I'm telling you, they're absolutely fantastic. Everybody should check them out. I heard them, so this would have been like last of August that I went to this concert. I have listened to their album and just, well, pretty much anything that they've ever come out with every day since then. It's fantastic. So that's my big plug. I've been moving along to Planet Booty.
I actually had a thought on this, and I wanted to ask you, and it may not pan out, so we might have to redo this. But what would you equate moving to in terms of like a movie scene? Like how has your move been in terms, like if you can compare it to something from a movie?
Oh man, if I could compare the process of moving to something from a movie, I would have to go with. Oh, that's tough. Okay, in Jurassic Park, The Lost World, where they're in that field with the high grass and the raptors are coming through, and and you're just running along and you're confused and it's desperate, and all of a sudden you get taken out. It feels a little bit like that, except instead of raptors, it's my partner saying, "Where do you want this?" I don't know. Figure it out.
Oh, moving and compared to, I mean. Yeah, equated to Jurassic Park. I like it.
Yeah, it's been an adventure, but we're doing good. So what have you been up to this weekend?
Oh, just watching TV, watching movies. I didn't have a Netflix obsession this weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so but just catching up on a lot of stuff around the house and things like that. So it was more of a chill weekend for me, and then just some binging on Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, it was pretty chill, just catching up, trying to get some cool stuff done for you guys.
Did you watch To All the Boys I've Loved Before at any point since we last spoke?
I watched it one more time, and I'm giving it a little break because I want to be fresh with I'm looking forward to in a few days, actually. I just realized Sierra Burgess is a loser. Noah Centineo will be in that one, along with Shannon Purser, who was the infamous Barb in Stranger Things.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that was coming out.
Yeah, September 7th.
Sweet.
So I'll talk about that next time.
Cool. Something that I've been waiting to talk to you about since you mentioned it last time is that you had the Out of Bounds Comedy Festival, right?
I did. I was so excited to go see it. I didn't get to go to too much this time around just because I had a lot of things going on, which I was kind of bummed about. But I did get to do an interview with the comedy troupe. I always think it's group, but it's troupe. Kids these days. So we did an interview with them, which was really cool. They're based out of New York City, and they work on a lot of different TV shows. So they... for instance, like The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Jimmy Fallon, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. So I
love that.
Yeah, so they're just writers and also comedians on those shows, and they've kind of made this troupe and they perform together sketch comedy. So it was really fun. So I got to kind of pick their brains a little bit, and then I got to see them perform, and I must tell you, they were pretty awesome.
Oh, how cool. I'm jealous.
Yeah, and then I saw a few other performers. Cigarette Sandwich I talked about. They were pretty cool. And then I saw Death Hammer, which was interesting. It was these two guys who were they come out all raging metalheads and tell you to go
We're throwing up. Okay, so it's not Hook 'em Horns. We're in Austin, but it looks a little like that.
Yeah, so they were asking us to kind of throw our horns, which I always will do because I'm a UT alum. But and we were just yelling, and then it turned out to be that they were pretty soft in their improv, which was funny.
Aw,
But it was awesome. So I had a really good time. So that was fun.
very cool.
Yeah, and you can find that interview with kids these days on shuffleonline.net.
And first plug.
We're in the zone. Please help it. Bring some more.
I got an Angry Orchard Rosé the other day, which is like a whole new level of basic for me, but I was into it. I'm keeping that shit for the pool.
It's just the sweetie kind of, like, that's why I can do cider. I mean, it's not super sweet, but it just gives me makes me nauseous because I had so much like sugary drinks when I was in college, like the cherry vodka sour, and like I had millions of those. So I'm just like, no.
No, I'm the same way. I used to, I had a girlfriend who would, like, Moscato was her big drink. And so anytime I went over, it was Moscato. And I don't know, I guess it was just a sign of me getting old, but I eventually turned a corner where I can't do it. So, like, the sweetest I can go is a rosé, and it's got to be, like, a tart rosé.
Yeah, I'm all about the IPAs now, just because it's super bitter, and I can handle that. I just can't handle any sweet stuff.
We do have such a great brewery culture in Austin, though, and that's something that I'm really trying to embrace. Like, I saw that they had at Permanent Record Studios, you can get an Austin East Ciders out of the fridge if you're into that sort of thing. I'm into it. But yeah. So, usually on this podcast, we're always talking about, what we're looking forward to, what's coming up that we're excited about. But Kat, Shuffle is really built on kind of with this undertone of nostalgia. That was something that really drew me to y'all whenever we were first starting out. You as a creator and as a person who loves media like myself, there is such a draw of nostalgia. And so, guys, what we were thinking today is, instead of looking too far into the future, let's just kick back a little bit. Let's talk about the things that we love that have passed, and, some stuff that's coming up that's a little related. And, Kat, you came up with this really great segment. Do you want to tell everybody about it?
We're going to do old movie versus new movie, since there's so many remakes, reboots. So let's kind of take it back, look back on what we loved about the original, or maybe we don't love the original and are looking forward to the new one. But in this case, we're going to be talking Predator versus the new Predator. So we talked a little bit about that on the last episode, but this time we're going to go a little bit deeper. And I actually watched The Predator again just to have it fresh in my mind last night. And it's still one of my favorite action movies, action thriller comedy that did it really well. They meshed all three together, which I think a lot of the newer remakes try to go in too many different directions, and they don't do it well. I think they should they tend to separate them, and they should just let it flow, like let it be natural. In The Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, they're commandos going into the jungle, and of course they're going to have comments on that.
Yeah, and of course, Predator, we're talking like 1987, and like you said, it's Arnold, man. Huge action star at this time. And I just love, for me, the golden age of action was definitely in the 80s. I mean, that was such a high-octane period. I really loved it. For me, you speak a little bit on effects, and that's something that I'm a little bit of an old fogey in that I'm so over digital and computer animated CGI effects. I think it's an amazing place that technology has gone, but I still have such deep respect for practical effects. And if a film does go lightly into practical effects, I always notice it. It always makes me appreciate the film a little more, because that's like the really inventive stuff to me. And of course, with Predator, you've got that all over, and it's iconic to me. Honestly, I'm not going to go so far as to like put it up there with some of the effects in Jurassic Park, but it works. It works so well in such a similar way, just such a cool design, so well executed from a visual perspective. It's really cool. And honestly, I would put the practical effects of Predator toe-to-toe with anything else out there. Just really great.
Yeah, well, when I was rewatching it, I realized that, yeah, it really used its surroundings very well. It didn't really have to do much. I mean, they're in the jungle. I'm not sure, I forget which country it was, but they're literally in the jungle, and the jungle itself is a character. And I think sometimes in a lot of movies, they don't utilize their surroundings as much, or they try to make it even scarier. And it's like, dude, it's a fucking jungle in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's fucking scary already. And then you have to deal with the militia that they're fighting, and then you have to deal with the internal conflicts, and then you have to deal with this predator that's who knows what, and they don't figure out what it is until way later. Like I think more than half.
Yeah, I
in the
think so.
movie.
I think it was in like the third act.
Yeah. So, but it's always this underlining tone, that's why I think it's so amazing, because it's so tension filled, because you have the internal conflict with Dutch, who is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then with with Dylan, who's played by Carl Weathers, and who has this secret agenda that he didn't let him know, and they found out later on. So then it's kind of building tensions in all different ways, and then it's just, I don't know, it's just awesome. And talking about practical effects, they do blow a lot of shit up, and which is awesome, and it looks real. And then also there was one scene, it was later in the movie, this guy, Jesse Ventura, who plays Blaine, he it's later on when like the predator he senses something's there, and he just starts blasting his big machine gun that like is not practical to carry in like a freaking jungle, but whatever, it's a movie.
It's a phallic symbol, very big thing in those 80s action movies.
Yeah, and so he like starts shooting, right? And then all the other guys come behind him, and they're like, "Oh, you're shooting, so I'm gonna be shooting." And then just all like 5 of them just start shooting into the jungle. Like it was like literally overkill, but it was freaking awesome, and I forgot about that. Like it was just like, and then they show the scene, and it's just actually it wasn't Jesse Ventura, it was Mac. I think it was Mac, or I'm not sure. It's already, but I just thought it was so funny, like all these macho guys just like, one guy's shooting, so I'm gonna shoot.
Yeah, so kind of taking that, because I'm right there with you. I think that the 1987 Predator is such a product of its time, and it's so perfect because of that. It was made at exactly the right moment. But kind of looking ahead, 2018, so are we almost 30 years, 40 years later? How long is it? How long has it been? Bad maths.
97, 2007. Yeah, 30 years, 31 years.
31 years separate. Geez. Huge span between the two. But what is something that you're excited about or not looking forward to? How do you feel, kind of to recap on this Predator remake that's coming out?
Well, fun fact, and this is probably going to make me seem like I don't know what I'm talking about, but you can't know everything. Shane Black, who's the new director, actually was one of the characters in the original Predator. Yeah, so I saw it, and he plays Hawkins in Predator, and I don't know why I didn't catch that in the beginning. So, of course, he's directing, and he like co-wrote the Predator. So when I learned that, I was like, okay. I mean, he was in the original. He knows the feeling, the vibe. So I know I talked mad shit about it last week. So in that sense, I feel like he's gonna try his best. But I also think that he's probably pitted. Even if he's got the vibe and everything of the original Predator, I feel like the studio probably chimed in and was like, hey, make sure to make it mainstream, and we got to have all these, we got to have the funny person, and then we got to have the girl, and then we got to have this, and we got to have that. And then I feel like it's still not going to live up to the original, obviously, but I feel like since Shane Black is at the helm, at least it's going to try to capture the spirit, which makes me a little bit more excited to watch it, but also I'm still worried.
Yeah, I feel you 100%. I try really hard to recognize my own bias whenever I'm approaching movies. And, and I touched on this very lightly in episode 2. There are some things that I just feel like are better in the space and time that they originate in. I am not interested in seeing Jaws remade. I don't think anybody could remake Jaws. I feel the same way about The Predator. There are just some things, like I mentioned a little earlier, you had the 80s, which was this great time for action movies. They were really leaning in hard to some of those tropes. They had these great stars doing exactly the right things at that time. Can you recapture that today? No, probably not. I mean, we don't respond to cheesy action the same way anymore. It's something that was very unique to that period. And then on the flip side, if you take away that cheesy action and you play it more straight, is it going to be a true Predator movie? Are Predator fans going to enjoy it? Will it even be good in the first place? Again, I try to own my bias, and I'm going in a little more sour than I think you are at this point. But I don't know that I needed this. I will, of course, give it a chance. But it will really have to win me over. I'm still very ready to shit talk it.
Yeah, well, watching the old Predator with Schwarzenegger, I thought it was going to be a little bit more cheesy than I remembered. I mean, I watch it every once in a while throughout the year, so I watch it at least 2 to 3 times a year. And just this time around, I actually was surprised by how serious it was. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not the cheesy one. Like, there's a few one-liners, which we'll get to, but for the most part, it really took itself seriously. The people, his crew, Dutch's crew is really. There's one guy, Billy, who's like kind of the scout who understands like the nature and stuff, and he's like scared out of his mind. Like, it's not playing on the comedy level that it is. I feel like it's playing in the new one, and I feel like that's what made it so good. Is that it's this Predator, it's a creature feature in some ways, but it maintained its. I don't know, its scariness.
Do you feel that it's more of a true horror than a sci-fi action? Because that's something people talk about a lot when it comes to the Predator.
Well, I feel like it just respected the Predator, like the character itself. It didn't make it like, it's what is like before this, what was the Predator? You know, it can be kind of silly, but they respected it. They didn't show it too much. And towards the end, it looks like freaking weird, but it's also freaking cool. And then the Predator itself plays a joke on I mean, he's going to blow the island up even when he's defeated. Like, what is that? You know, like, it was just, I don't know. I think it was just way ahead of its time in that sense. And I think that's why it holds up, is because just the story's really good.
Oh, yeah. It's a great one.
Yeah. And then I think also for me, I just loved the fact that it continued into like Alien versus Predator. Like, we learn why they do that. We learn that they come and they hunt, and, you know, they got to show their skills and things like that. And I think that's what I have an issue with, like, with these new ones. I don't know if they're going to link back to the old one. And I feel like it just feels like another standalone. Like, this is a Predator. This is they just come and kill people, and let's take them out because they're going to kill us. Like, I feel like it's just not respecting the character, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. Because at this point, you know, you touch on something that I think is really worth noting. You know, when the Predator first came out in '87, there was no precursor. Nobody knew what this was. And so that movie had the luxury of building this really rich mystery. And then, you know, you get to AVP and you get to build a richer mythos. And, you know, kind of piggybacking off of the success of both Predator and the Alien movies. And you know, and as you say that, and as I think about it a little more, that gives me another kind of cause of concern for this 2018 remake, reimagining. What are we officially calling this thing?
I don't know. I mean,
well, and there you go.
I watched the trailer again, and still, like, it has a lot of people that I'm really excited for. Like, I love Boyd Holbrook. Like, he was amazing in Logan, and it has Sterling K. Brown, who I love. But I feel like they're all just playing some stereotype, like, characters. Like, oh, in an action movie, you got to have the comedic one, which is Keegan-Michael Kay. You got to have the crazy one, which is Thomas Jane. You got to have Boyd Holbrook, who's going to be the hero and you know, the anti-hero, but ends up being the hero. You know, and then you're going to have the girl who's going to be the badass, but it's just there, you know, like, so I feel like they're just putting everything together just to kind of make it. And then also something that my partner brought up is, I guess there's been a lot of like Predator comics and things, like a lot of mythology built around this. And the fact that they have one captured in the lab, where in the trailer, he said that normally wouldn't have like, obviously they're a predator. They're really hard to capture. And in the comics, they only captured it once. So that also is kind of not being true to the character.
I wonder perhaps if this 2018 version of the Predator is going to rely too heavily on the legacy that came before. You know, almost like this is a film that needs no introduction because you love everything that came before. And that always is something that worries me, because that's something that happens so often with especially sequels. You know, you'll have, and of course, this is a silly example, but it's the most pure one that I can think of. But like Pirates of the Caribbean, do you remember how huge Pirates of the Caribbean was whenever it first came out?
Yeah, I watched it a million times. That's
Same.
One of my all-time favorites. I was a big Johnny, well, I don't know, I have mixed feelings right now, but I was obsessed with Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, same. I mean, it was something totally new and incredible, and, you know, the first sequel, not so bad, but it got to the point where that was a film that lean too heavily. It came out with a bang, and everything else, they never bothered to build a solid foundation. It just kind of collapsed in on itself, and we all know how that franchise turned out. And I would hate for that to happen to The Predator, because that is such a strong legacy. There have been, multiple films that have held up in their own right, and I would hate to see a modern adaptation and filmmaker take that for granted.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that Shane Black was in the original Predator, the fact that he's written a lot of great action movies. I mean, he wrote Lethal Weapon at the age of 22, which is freaking, I didn't know that. He's amazing. But I think he's not gonna try to make a bad Predator movie, is all I'm saying. So I'm gonna give it a shot. And I think if it's not as good as it's not gonna be as good as the original. That's it. I mean, maybe it will be for the modern times, but I just know it isn't. But I'm gonna give it a shot in its own right. And I think the fact that he's the one doing it, I mean, I'm gonna appreciate the fact his try, but I hope to be proven wrong.
I might be a little more of a hard ass than you on this one, and that's okay.
Yeah. Just one last thing, because we've talked a lot about Predator and The Predator. Some fun lines that I remembered rewatching the old Predator. I thought we'd bring them up and try to do some impersonations of them.
Oh, God. Yeah, there is. Well, it's Arnold. Arnold is so quotable, whether he tries to be or not. So that's a huge one.
Well, I'll just start off with some of my favorite lines that normally don't get quoted as much as the popular ones. But Dutch says, "If he bleeds, we can kill it."
Is that your Arnold?
I don't know what that is. And then also Blaine, who's played by Jesse Ventura, has some of my favorite ones. So let me see if I can do some of those. Son of a bitch is dug in like an Alabama tick.
That reminds me very much of some of my college youth in the Deep South.
I thought of you when I heard that line.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when he's doing something, and then Poncho tells him something, he's like, "You're bleeding." And he's like, "I ain't got time to bleed."
That's a badass one.
And then, of course, these are the Arnold's infamous quotes. "Get to the chopper!
Get to the chopper! Yeah." Is that how you Arnold?
Get to the chopper!
Get to the chopper!
It's different than I remember, though. He's on the ground, and I was gonna say the alien, the Predator, kind of has pinned him down or something, and then the girl who's in there is like loose and she's running away, and he's like on the ground sideways yelling, and I was like, oh, I don't remember you doing that.
It's so funny how with some lines, and I've noticed this like with some Star Wars quotes, and I can't get into like the specifics of it because it would just take me forever to fully recollect, but it's funny how super popular quotes, once they get so deep into the popular lexicon, oftentimes we don't quote them and repeat them as they were in the film. They become infamous for like slightly different wording or a different the Luke, I am your father line. That's not how that goes in the movie, but that's a way that a lot of people, even like marketing campaigns and stuff, like when something gets really deep.
Yeah.
It might be a bit of a tirade, but
yeah, like that one he says it, but he doesn't say it as a lot of people say it. And then another one that I liked, when he like knifed a guy, he's like, he says, "Stick around."
Iconic.
And then one of my favorites too is, "You son of a bitch."
You son of a bitch. That's the one they always put on those Arnold prank call soundboards. Have you ever listened to one of those? Oh, they're great. So great.
Yeah, so that was fun. I mean, they don't make them like that anymore.
No, they really don't.
But one thing that did come up, and this is going to segue into our next segment, is the fact that Jesse Ventura's character, Blaine, kind of said a non-PC, well, something that is non-PC today, and he said the F word, but not the fuck word, the other F word.
The French cigarette word?
Yes. And that's right. That's before he says, "This stuff will make you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus just like me," which is another awesome line. But it just got me thinking, like when I heard him say that, it kind of made me cringe a little bit. And I was like, fuck, like I love this movie, but does that make me like, I don't know where that pits you. And obviously this is 1987, so it was it's in a movie, so it was accepted back then. But nowadays it's not. So it's kind of like that offensive nostalgia.
Yeah, this is something that I think about all the time because we're really turning a corner culturally, I would say, in that overall we are very concerned about issues of diversity and about political correctness, and where we often kind of take a stand on that, at least in kind of cultural conversation, is in our media. Film especially is kind of the film and television really is the front line of that cultural push. And I mean, you'll see, I remember this, I went to, like I said earlier, I went to college in the Deep South, and I had some close proximity to Memphis, Tennessee, and a huge controversy whenever I was in school there was a retro theater in Memphis that would screen Gone with the Wind, I think, every summer. And that was kind of just a tradition in the city of Memphis, is that people, would go to this theater for this Gone with the Wind screening. And for the first time in, many, many years, they were not going to screen it because the powers that be had decided that this was not something they were going to show anymore. And there was a lot of back and forth discussion on that was really difficult. And it's so crazy that you had this experience recently with The Predator, because I was watching a film the other day. I was watching El Dorado, which is a John Wayne Western, and I was watching a TV edit. I was visiting my parents, and it was on TV, so we were just sticking around watching it. It's one of my favorites, and I highly recommend it to people who love Westerns. But there is a scene that's kind of iconic for that movie, and that's what made me notice it, is that it was the scene that everybody knows well who has seen that film. But it involves a white actor performing an Asian stereotype. And which it's kind of, and I just think about how many times I've seen that movie and how I never really thought about it. And then in this TV edit, they cut that entire scene out. And it was crazy because I'm sitting there watching and I was like, oh, I know it's coming. And then it's gone. And you're like, what? Oh, just kind of that. It's a crazy thing, really, to think back on. And of course, that movie was made in like the 60s, something like that. Maybe even older than that. Oh, God. Just a totally different time. I don't know. How do you reconcile your offensive nostalgia?
So I was actually watching another movie a few weeks ago, Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, and I hadn't seen it. Victor was telling me, hey, let's watch this. It was on TV. And I was like, okay, cool. And it's from beginning to end is the most offensive thing for African Americans. Like, just all the stereotypes, the way the white characters treat Eddie Murphy, those comments that they make. Like, I was really because I had never seen it before, so it really baffled me in the fact that this was acceptable. This was 1983, and so we have come a long way, but I mean, not far enough in some ways. But the fact that was able to be on screen and it just blatantly racist from the characters was really interesting, and it was a little bit cringy, so I couldn't really it was really hard to watch all the way through. And the only reason I watched all the way through is because Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd are amazing comedians, and the fact that Eddie Murphy, I feel like, wouldn't have done something if he thought it was offensive to him, but obviously he was prone to that because it was the 1980s, so I'm sure he wouldn't have done that film today. I don't even think maybe Dan Aykroyd wouldn't have done it. I don't know. Maybe none of the people in that film would have done it. But yeah, that's like the definition of offensive nostalgia.
Do you find that you have a hard time reconciling your offensive nostalgia? Because I kind of taking it to my experience with El Dorado. That's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's my favorite John Wayne Western. And I've always remembered that scene. I mean, it's a humorous scene, but it's offensive. It is a humor built on stereotype and offense. 100% would not have been made today at all. But how do you feel whenever a favorite kind of goes into that territory? Because for me, I'm always going to love El Dorado. But there are some movies like Breakfast at Tiffany's. You want to talk about wildly offensive stereotypes. Yeah. Breakfast at Tiffany's, which another movie that I hold very dear, it gets harder and harder to watch. With El Dorado, I think the nostalgia is so strong that I'll always find a piece of forgiveness. But for some reason with Breakfast at Tiffany's, the older I get, the more aware I become, the more woke, if you were. You know, the more we watch it, the harder it becomes. And I do worry about Breakfast at Tiffany's future.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can just kind of end it on this note. The fact that in To All the Boys I Loved Before, she's an Asian American lead, and her character and Noah Centineo's character are watching 16 Candles, and he actually remarks when they're watching it, hey, isn't that character racist? Like being racist to Asians? She's like, yeah, but, and then he's like, well, why are you watching it? And then the little sister was like, Jake Ryan, hello. And so I guess in that sentiment, you kind of have to realize it was at the time. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. Hopefully we've come far, you know, we've come a long way since then, which I think we have. And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of hard. It's going to be hard on certain movies, but you can just I guess you're going to have to tune them out if you love the rest of the movie, because it's not fair. Like, those people didn't, I mean, I don't know. It's just a product of its time.
Yeah, I think that's a healthy perspective for sure. It's important to recognize those things and learn from those things, but ultimately, I don't think guilt is required.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, some people have been held to their actions 10 years ago.
Yes.
And obviously, there's some things that are always wrong in no matter what decade. But as a viewer watching them, I don't know. It's tough. I think you just have to go case by case and figure out, and it's going to change as you are in different years of your life. But yeah, hopefully there won't be any more of those crazy bad stereotypes or bad offensive stereotypes.
I think we've moved very far past that, thank goodness, as a media creating culture. So, okay, enough about movies. We're going to lighten things up. That is as deep and controversial as we are ever going to get on this show. Let's talk about TV. What are you watching on TV?
Yeah, so like I said at the beginning, I binge watched Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan with John Krasinski on Amazon. So obviously I didn't like it at all because I binged it in one day, but
of course not.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. And it kind of brought on that a conversation that I told you, is that the critics were saying they thought it was boring. Jack Ryan's character was boring. They didn't do much for John Krasinski's character. They focused too much on other people, that it was just okay. But then the response I was getting from while I was watching it and seeing the Twitter responses from people who were also watching it were really positive, and they really enjoyed it. People were watching it a second time. So it was kind of like, why is there such a disconnect between, obviously the critics are trying to look at something else, but I'm also consider myself a critic and also a fan. And I feel like sometimes people just are going way too far with what they expect, or they just want to, I think it's just that culture of kind of bringing stuff down no matter what. I'm not saying it was perfect, but it was pretty damn good for a thriller. And I think it really captured the spirit of Jack Ryan and those movies that I love so much with Harrison Ford. But yeah, and then one thing that was really interesting that I really enjoyed is the fact that they focused a lot on the backstory of the villains, I would say. They kind of gave a lot of depth to them. So, and also in that sense, there was a lot of breakout stars that I have to mention. So Ali Suleiman, who actually plays Suleiman, so I don't know if that was intentional. He's the main villain. Hesitant to say terrorist, but he's the main villain. And his brother is played by Haz Slimane, who's his character is Ali. And so it follows them from the very beginning. In the first episode, we see them as little kids. Their village gets bombed. That kind of, ensues everything. But they actually, they are refugees. They move to France. They try to do it the right way, get into college. They graduate. But of course, they get shunned because of the whole refugee stuff. So I think this story really brought the modern day crisis that's going on and really shed a light on that. And yeah, but I thought it was really good. I mean, it was 8 episodes, so it was pretty action packed. The action was really good. The effects were pretty good. I mean, it wasn't like a major blockbuster effects, but it was more than the average TV show. Well, nowadays, not as good as Game of Thrones, but pretty damn good. And And the action is more practical. It's not crazy special effects. It's not crazy visual effects. It's more special effects, which I like. And also Jack Ryan, he's an analyst. He's not going to be doing crazy James Bond things. So it doesn't have to be crazy action scene, which I loved. I love the fact that it kind of grounds the story. But yeah, if you want a nice little binge watch, I definitely recommend it.
I'm into it, yeah. Well, just John Krasinski is so cute. I absolutely love him. And I love that you mentioned kind of the disconnect between fans and critics. You know, you guys, everybody's a critic, but the most important thing to remember is that media is a means of entertainment. We're not trying to, rewrite film criticism here. Just enjoy yourself, man. And we could have a whole other episode on some critic bullshit, in my opinion. Well, I haven't gotten to watch much TV because I've been really busy. But what I'm really looking forward to, and this drops on Netflix on October 5th, season 2 of Big Mouth, which I know you haven't seen, but I'm going to try to get you hooked on it before season 2 comes out. I love Big Mouth. Big Mouth, for those of y'all that don't know, it's a Netflix animated series. It's helmed by Nick Kroll, which before let's say, no, pay attention. It basically covers burgeoning teen sexuality. It focuses on a group of teenagers as they're discovering their bodies and hormones for the first time. Their hormones are embodied by these hormone monsters. It is so fucking gross, but so goddamn hilarious, and I connect with it quite personally because every person who has watched that show, actually, I'll sum it up for you this way. My best friend that I've known since first grade, I was like, oh, the show's so funny, you should watch this show. She called me, and she's like, you realize that you were my hormone monster for many years.
Is that one of the characters?
That's
hormone
one of the characters.
monster?
Yeah, the hormone monster. She's like, you realize that, when I was becoming a woman, you were my hormone monster telling me all kinds of gross stuff. And I'll own that. And you can decide what you think about it after you see it. But that's my only TV obsession. Yeah, so kind of moving forward into stuff that we're super stoked on, we've got a Shuffle the Pod buzz round for you. So, Kat, as quickly as you possibly can, what is coming up? What is exciting? Go, go, go!
Well, there's some news from Venice Film Festival that hit a few days ago, which kind of makes me excited for the fall season. So now is the time where we're getting all the Academy Award possible nominations, the front runners, things like that. So it's getting exciting. But one of those was A Star Is Born, directed by Bradley Cooper. Lady Gaga stars in that as it's like a remake or something. But they said basically the reviews that are coming out are pretty good. So yes.
Super excited.
Yeah, next. So one of my favorite actresses is Rachel Weisz, or Weisz.
She's amazing. Yeah,
she's awesome. She's in The Mummy, so I loved her for a long time. And it's called The Favorite with an OU in there.
Ooh, so it's classy.
Yeah, so it is basically set in the time period of the 18th century England when they're at the war with French, and they basically play, I don't know, if you watch the trailer, it's pretty awesome. And also Emma Stone is in there. I'm not going to give too much away because I can't do all of this in the speed round. But basically, go watch the trailer. And also, it stars Olivia Colman, who's going to be the new queen in The Crown, which I'm freaking obsessed about. So you'll be hearing about a lot of The Crown when it was coming up next year.
Okay, I have to jump into this buzz round real quick because, oh my God, this just came out today as we're sitting here recording this. We got our first look at Captain Marvel. Holy shit, Brie Larson, she's looking fabulous. I'm super excited for this movie. I'm excited to see her fully entrenched into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I could go on forever, but I'm not going to because, Kat, you're going to finish us out with one more thing.
Our favorite person who can't do an American accent, Henry Cavill, but we love him anyway because he's pretty, has just been cast as in the Witcher series by Netflix. And I must say that we are certainly living in a different time zone where the person who's playing Superman on screen and just came off Mission Impossible, like a big blockbuster movie, is going to Netflix for a series. That's freaking awesome. 10 years ago, that would have never happened, a big star coming to Netflix for a TV show or just a TV series. So I think definitely the times have changed for the better. I think it's freaking awesome. So I'm excited about that.
Well, this weekend, and we touched on this a little bit last week, I'm going to see The Nun this weekend. Super excited. This is going to be my spooky kickoff for the year. This is going to be the energy that propels me all the way to October 31st. Very excited. By the time y'all are listening to this, that review will be up on Shuffle Online. And, I'm kind of really kicking into high gear with the movies. So I've got The Nun this weekend. Next week, I'm going to see Life Itself. That review will also be up by the time you are listening to this.
Oscar Isaac!
Oscar Isaac! I'm so excited!
We got to do like a five things Kate thirst for Oscar Isaac or something like that.
I will tweet after the screening everything my top 5 Oscar Isaac thirsts of Life Itself.
Even though it's like a dramatic This Is Us kind of movie.
I actually am a little concerned about how that's going to impact me emotionally, but we'll get there. Now, something that you and I were talking about today actually is we're both really looking forward to A Simple Favor.
Yeah, I'm a little torn on this. I'm really excited for it because I love Blake Lively, but I feel like she's one of those that have taken on kind of the persona, like her outside persona. Like she's married to Ryan Reynolds.
Jill.
She's a badass fashionista on Instagram. She has really cool captions, like really snarky, witty captions on her Instagram. And I feel like sometimes the movies get kind of left behind. Like when she does her press tour, it's all about her. She changes like 5 times in a day when she's doing her press tour, which is freaking amazing. But then I feel like sometimes her movies get left behind in that whirlwind. But I still I love watching. Like I loved The Age of Adeline with her. And I'm hoping this one's, it seems interesting. I still don't know what it is about. Like she's drinking martinis. She has a perfect life. And Anna Kendrick wants to be her. And then she disappears. Like, did you see the marketing campaign on her Instagram? Like all her Instagram posts got deleted.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they weren't really deleted, but that was like part of the marketing campaign.
Right.
So I really thought that was interesting, really unique. But yeah, she plays that kind of role really well, though. The one that you want, the person you want to be.
Well, yeah, like who doesn't want to be Blake Lively, honestly? I saw one campaign that was describing it as a mix between Gone Girl and Bridesmaids, which I don't know what to make of that, but I'm definitely into it. That's one that I'm definitely going to be rushing out to see, and that y'all should be looking for a review.
Yeah, on shuffleonline.net. Yeah, and I just think at least she's putting out unique content. It's not remakes. It's something original. So I like that.
Yeah, incredibly unique. And I'm a sucker for this sort of thing. This is right up my alley. So I'm sure that you and I will mutually gush very soon.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all we got. But anything else? Any last thoughts?
Now listen to Planet Booty. I really, I don't mean to plug them so hard, but, they're so good, and I'm so obsessed, and, they're little small Oakland babies, and they deserve your love. And as always, guys, we love hearing from you. We love your feedback. We love your reviews. Thank you so much. But really what we want to know is what you think. I mean, we're just here in a bubble talking at each other, man. Are you pro Predator reimagining? Do you love the first one? How do you handle your offensive nostalgia? Drop us a comment on what you're thinking about, what we're talking about, what you are looking forward to that we missed, because we try not to miss anything.
And if you want, record your favorite Arnold line and send that to us too.
Yes, we would love that, please. And as always, you can reach us at Shuffle the Pod on Twitter and Instagram, Shuffle the Podcast on Facebook. Leave your comments there. Come and say hi. We love it when people say hi. Okay, you guys, we are going to shuffle on out of here. We will see you next time. Thanks so much. As always, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Shuffle the Pod. And Kat, you've got some thank yous.
Yeah, and of course, we love to thank our partners, so many shows. Jay, especially, Mike from Pop Culture Review. So I'm watching the show, Kristen and Will, we love you guys. And they just started Patreon, so go and support them or listen to their podcast. And the Daily Review, we love them as well. And of course, all our followers. Of course, Maddie, she came in the clutch again and live tweeted our whole show. So if you guys want to follow along and do that, we'll love you as well.
And, of course, thank you so much to Permanent Record Studios for the use of your beautiful space. And thank you, Fonz PR, for getting us into those screenings and letting us do what we love to do.
Oh, and one last shout out to, we just joined the hashtag LadyPod Squad. Woo!
LadyPod Squad!
I guess we're LadyPod Squad.
I love it.
Yeah. So we're growing. Keep growing. Share us, like us, do whatever you want with us.
Anything.
I mean, within limits. All right, guys.
I have no limits.
All right, Kate has no limits. All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Shuffle out.